by you. Oh,
We're live.
I'm so glad we're live. So,
Greetings and welcome to Calm, Clear Conversations. I'm Christopher Johnson with Calm, Clear Communications, and with me today to talk about community, connection, engagement, and more, Megan Vogias. Did I
good
pronounce that
morning.
correct?
You did.
Okay.
I always say close enough, it's Greek. So we can go with Megan. I can even change that, right? So I am so delighted to be here again with you, Christopher, on your LinkedIn Live this time. So,
It is always a pleasure. And the topics that we're going to cover today, well,
mhm.
community. It is something, you are a community evangelist.
Thank you. I'm learning how to practice that. And I have to say, I am impressed at how our communities continue to intersect.
There is a lot of overlap.
It is. There is. And one of the things I'd love to know is since there's overlap, if you're chiming in, go ahead and weigh in the chat for us. Let us know what community or region you're attending from. So where you're visiting from. Are you in Cleveland or Detroit? Are you in Florida or California? If you're in California, y'all, thank you for getting up early. So, but let us know in the chat.
Absolutely. And community. So as we were setting up for this LinkedIn Live event, see, here's the thing, there is prep work in the background. It looks like we wing it, but there is work.
What? Wait. We actually prepare for this stuff?
Well,
We
of
actually
course.
prepare to be extemporaneous?
There you go. It is comfort in the chaos.
Oh, I
If you
love that.
set up
That's a new hashtag, comfort in the chaos.
if you set up the guardrails, you know where they are.
Mhm. Absolutely.
An ever-present thing that we talk about,
Mhm.
books, community, library. I just renewed my library card yesterday, and I immediately put a few things on the hold for me list.
That's awesome. Wait, so you have to renew yours every year?
I have to renew it every 3 years.
Interesting. I wonder if it's the same out here. I don't think I've ever had to worry about renewing it. It could be because I also visit it. Uh, so, but
Yeah,
that's interesting.
they sent me an email. Hey, by the way, your library card expires the end of the month. It's like, yeah, okay, no problem.
It's like your driver's license. You need to renew it.
They want to make sure that you are, in fact, using it, that you find value in having a library in the community. And yes, I do.
Well, and it's that community piece, right? Are you leveraging the resources in your community? And I think that's a great piece to start to kind of transition our conversation, right? Are we leveraging the resources in our community and in our LinkedIn community, right? So, for those of you who don't know Chris and I, one of the things to consider is that Chris and I didn't know each other 3 years ago. We met in the LinkedIn community. In fact, I'll do a shout out to Brenda in the chat. So, I'm
We did.
yeah. So
And
shout
it
out.
was that community. And see, that is one of those wonderful communities where it is broad and deep and encompassing and encouraging.
Agreed. I am doing a major shout out to Brenda on this one. Shout out to Brenda. She did a beautiful job. So if you are in the Brenda Miller community, drop us a chat. Let us know you're listening. If you're listening to this after the fact, after we've gone live, go ahead and chime in the chat that yes, we know where you are. We hear you. We're listening. So
Absolutely. And community is where you find it and where you want to find it.
mhm.
We're both active. You and I are both active in various communities. So some of the communities where you are active are.
Ooh, let's talk about it. So I'm active in my actual regional community, right? So I'm an advocate for there's some leadership groups that I love giving a shout out to, and I'll tag these all in the event in a second. They're when Women in Networking of Cleveland, right? They just celebrated their 25th anniversary. So shout out to Yolanda Albergati on that one. I'll tag her in the chat. Good morning. Sonia is another shout out to this one. I know Sonia is a big believer in our local network. And I'm not a member, but I know Sonia good morning. Um, Other networks that I'm in, I connect and stay connected to NABO, the National Association of Women Business Owners in Cleveland. One of my dearest friends is the president of the board of that organization. I'm part of Trails for Travis. I sit on a nonprofit organization. I help with educators in the community, right? So there's a lot of different communities. Our chambers of commerce on LinkedIn. I'm trying to elevate leaders. Our middle school volunteer programs, right? I think it's called there's one called Evolve, but those are a lot of the different communities, and perhaps the digital community I'm in, which I know deserves a shout out to Amy Vaughn and everybody in that wonderful community, from Deb to Brenda to the Danielles, the Together in Digital. So, or Together Digital, if you're not following it. Amy was on my LinkedIn live last week. So what about you, Chris? What communities are you in?
So in addition to those types of communities, some of mine are professional organizations.
Okay.
IEEE. And this is a community that is advancing technology for humanity.
Ooh.
So I'm in that community because of my background working in IT. So IEEE is an engineering community, and my
Yeah.
background in IT serves me well for that. Another one is ISACA,
Ooh.
and this is an IT audit community. Governance, risk mitigation. Those things are valuable all the time across a whole host of things because, hey, we all have now seen so many times a data
Mhm.
breach. As we go through all of these different things, there are so many different communities that we can engage with. Now,
Mhm.
one of the ways that we can engage with community is
Yeah.
just being of service. So, how does service fit with the communities where you find yourself engaged?
Ooh, that's a powerful question. I take a lot of pride in what we are is God's gift to us. What we become is our gift to God. So giving back to me is a mission that we should all fulfill, and not to go down the faith train too far, but it's this idea that we're here to help each other, period, point blank. So whether we're fulfilling the mission of the organization, whether we're achieving, to your part, when you're looking at the tech and bringing awareness to securities and trending technologies and trying to get the word out there about upcoming things, those are incredibly important topics to talk about. I feel the same way about elevating women, right? In all types of STEM and marketing. And I also feel the same way with our LGBTQ plus groups, right? And I go down that route because I also stay pretty connected. There's some wonderful organizations at Kent State. And shout out to AJ Liu in the chat. She facilitates it for our school at Communication Studies College of Communication Information. But those type of organizations like Pride, and when you look at that range, right, and you look at some of the different networks, there's a really cool chamber alliance, right? So when we talk about that, it's elevating those businesses who have that classification or who identify with that community and really advancing those, right? Because giving back is why we do it. There's nothing more frustrating to me, having sat in the leadership position, and I don't know how you feel about this, of just doing it to put it on your resume. Like, join an organization that you feel compelled to be actively engaged in, because that's going to give you the story. That's going to add to the experience of the organization, the testimonies. Your network is going to grow. If you just check the box, fill it out, sign it, oh yeah, I'm a member of that. It's like being part of like the who's who in American high school students. That's great. You're on a book somewhere that says you were a member, right? But what did you do? Like, unless I pull that book off and read it, I'm not going to know what you did. So that's my little
Exactly.
service speech. I'll get off
And
my soapbox now.
well, no, it's a delightful soapbox. Service is one of the ways where we can identify how to be involved with that community. For instance, my local election board.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, my dad was always involved in the elections. He worked the precinct every year, and he stopped when they started bringing in computers. And I started, it's like, wait a second, computers, go on. Because I saw an immediate way to help out, to connect. There were a number of people who were less comfortable with the technology. It's like, got it covered.
That's awesome.
And that was the start of my involvement with things like that. Being
Keep
able
telling that
to
story. Yeah, because I love that story.
being able to see yourself making a difference,
Mm-hmm.
that is what gets you really connected to a community. The being able to make a difference.
Yeah. It is, and I love your story about your dad because it's that part where it's a legacy. We're legacy kids, right? We're kids who were told that this is what you do, and this is on my desk. So this is my grandmother, and I've done a post about her, and we'll talk later. So stay tuned about how to get involved to your chamber, how to get involved with your chambers. But the year before I was born, she won the Outstanding Woman of Excellent Executive Award for the Kent and Ravenna Area Chambers of Commerce. And it's just a testimony. I mean, she founded the Ravenna Balloon Affair. She was a mover and a shaker. Your goal is to give back, right? And it's to celebrate your community. It's not to give back so you get an accolade. I mean, this was completely unexpected for her. And people remember her for elevating them, not for what she did, Oh, I remember how she made me feel, ... right? But to your dad's point, I guarantee you, working at the polls and you watching him do that, you saw that idea of, oh, this is just what we do. This is just an expectation, right? So,
Absolutely. And when you see yourself being able to make a difference as opposed to, well, this is a job that needs to be done. I'm not going to put much into it. It's like, no, when you see making a difference by doing what you do, it's like, oh, well, wait a second. This is something you're struggling with. Got it covered. I can do that easy.
right. Exactly. It's just that part. And I grew up, my parents, this was way before it was ever a thing that dads volunteered in schools, but my parents were co-presidents of our parent teacher organization. And I go back to, I watched that, I watched him meet with our neighbor up the street and play in the school fundraisers. I watched my mom be a Girl Scout troop leader with my two best. And so you see that and you're like, oh, this is just what you do.
It is. And that involvement, that connection,
Yeah,
that is how we move forward through society.
absolutely.
So one of the truisms that Brenda often talks about is social media karma.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
being involved with your network means your network is there for you. You
Mm-hmm.
don't use LinkedIn, today I need to find a client, a new job,
Hmm.
it is no, you are involved
Right.
because you are connected.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it. Ken just chimed in. Ken said he was a PTO dad too. I love that, Ken. I'm sure you would, knowing, if you haven't tuned into Kenneth Lang's LinkedIn lives and followed Ken, please do so. And I will give a shout out, Ken. I guarantee you, God rest my dad's soul, you and my dad would have been good friends because you have the same level of energy and give back. But to your point, this is a great, I think, time for us to pivot, right? So let's talk about social media karma in a LinkedIn world, right? So we know how we're involved in our communities. And shout out to Yolanda. She's like active engagement. Absolutely, right? And sorry, Susan's laughing at me because of my mug. Think happy, be happy. But let's talk about, okay, so we're in a social world, right? Okay, so now world shuts down in March of 2020, I feel like 19, I don't know, it's all a blur. Okay, world shuts down, right? How do you get engaged in the LinkedIn community? What are your secrets, Chris? I love it, Susan. Okay, this is great. Hold on, Susan just said she was also head of her kids' PTO. Y'all, if you were a PTO parent, shout it out in the chat.
Absolutely. And how do I get involved? Well, again, those professional organizations looking for their social media presence. Like, oh, huh. And here's a side note on the PTO stuff.
Yeah.
As an introvert,
Ooh.
it was a realization after becoming a parent. Wait a second. I'm going to have to talk with people at their school until they're done. Oh, okay.
Right. And so let's talk about that for a second. So for those of you who are introverts and listening in, we get it. Okay. I'm engaged to an engineer. I get it. Who completely baffles him. I'll give this disclaimer too, that I love. He's like, I don't know why you're so involved. Yet he's the president of the Greater Cleveland Penn State Alumni Chapter, or, so I'm like, okay, but you go to those introverts, but here's why he likes it. He empowers his team to do things. So he works in a small group and empowers those that are more extroverted to execute. So think about that. If extroverts execute, introverts can be included in the conversation. So
Absolutely.
yeah. And it's okay to be an introvert. You can be isn't it an ambivert? I'm trying to remember. Oh, that beautiful book,
Yes,
Quiet by Susan Cain.
exactly.
You can, and again, Susan Cain's Quiet, the Power of the Introvert. You can be an ambivert where you can waver between the two, but you still need to have your bucket filled with energy and take some time away. So as an introvert, how would you recommend an introvert build a community on LinkedIn?
By going where you're comfortable.
I love that point.
What does that mean? Well, the communities where you're already involved and a member. If you are, in a bowling league, for instance, hey, I'm guessing some of those people are involved with LinkedIn, or they have a presence on LinkedIn. They're involved with other companies. Looking at what they're posting, responding, commenting, being just human with people that you know in real life on these social media platforms, being involved and connected.
Yeah. And I want to share my screen for a second because I think this is something fun to note. And I'm going to hold on, share screen. Let me see if I can. Okay. So if you look at your LinkedIn homepage right now, there's a Brenda post, but it says search for jobs, skills, companies, ... Okay. So look there again. It says search for jobs, skills, companies, ... Chris and I are going to fill in the ... here because we want you to understand that there's other networks you can be in the community, right? So for me, let's go back to what Chris talked about earlier, right? So Chris said, I'm going to swing over here. He said one of the things he's part of in terms of his organization was technology organizations, right? So I could type in technology. Well, let's go. What's another word you would use? Technology, what? Organizations? Would you
Sure.
do?
Or, there are so many organizations such as IEEE, SAE, and I know that's a lot of acronyms.
That
Sure.
if it comes up. Well, look at that. So all of a sudden, if you typed in IEEE, SAE, you can then sort and sift here. Well, is there a group for that?
There are many, and you can find something local to you or a subgroup for a type of product or service that you're offering within the engineering space.
Let's do this. Let's do coaching. So here's what I'm going to do. You can type in, go back to your homepage, right? Type in what your career is. So we've got some great coaching on the line. So we're going to hit coaching. Come over here and go, oh, well, what's a group? Oh, well, look at that. Now, here's a fun hack. So I love positive psychology. You all know that if you know me. So I might go to the positive psychology coaching and go, there's a lot of members. And I'd look at the description, right? Application to real life and coaching. This includes developments, networking, boom, 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 and discussion of research. Assessments and techniques, all are welcome. So you know what? I'm going to join. So I'm going to join. They're going to approve me. And as soon as I request, look at how many people in my network are already part of that group. So again, you can pull that up. And once I'm a member, so let's go to another, I'm going to pause for a second. These are great chances for you to maybe consultant.
Exactly.
What
The
you click here. Go ahead. Look at that.
when you take your comfort zone online, you don't have to expand it for it to be included with who you are.
No, that's exactly right. Exactly. Oh my gosh. So Susan gave you a shout out. There's definitely an IEEE in Massachusetts, or Maine. I can never remember the M, but they're great. And I love it, right? So you can do this in a group setting, but you can also kind of pivot back, right? So Chris and I talk, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So as an introvert, start with your profession, right? Start Googling words for your profession and click that groups tab. See what groups you're a member of. When I was working with small businesses, a lot more frequently than I am now, I looked up small business groups. There's I Love Startups. I'm a part of it. I love the group. They have great posts, great dialogue. There's a group for small business entrepreneurs. Whatever you want, I guarantee you there is a community for it on LinkedIn. Chris, while you kind of take the lead on what kind of groups you think people should be in, I'm going to look up how many groups are on LinkedIn.
There are quite a number. And another group that I will happily shout out, Toastmasters, because communicating and connecting go hand in hand. Being a competent communicator is one of the things that Toastmasters can help with, being a leader. And now there are a variety of clubs that are either online or hybrid, and they can facilitate, they can help, they can nurture your public speaking. Who needs public speaking? People who communicate with other people, whether it's on a virtual platform or a hybrid platform or in real life. Communication is how we connect. Toastmasters is one of the organizations that can help. And this is Toastmasters contest season. I have been busy over the last couple of weeks helping contests in my area because they're happening virtually.
Love that. And I love that. So what I just gave a shout out as well to the Toastmasters in my network. I actually just did an introduction to that community for somebody else last night. And to think about it this way too. So there are 2 million groups on LinkedIn, according to recent data, 2 million. And I love this line. You ready for this? It was reported in January 21st, 2020. An article in Forbes report, one of the 5 hacks to get the most out of LinkedIn groups. And I'll drop this article in the chat, but it says with more than 2 million groups on LinkedIn, there is a place for everyone. It doesn't say there's a place for extroverts. There's a place for coaches. There's a place for introverts. It says there's a place for everyone. So I'm going to drop this really cool article, how to get the most out of groups. And I think they're a powerful place to start, right? So let's circle back, right? So to those of you who we want to talk about community, if you're not part of 3 groups on LinkedIn, make it your goal today to find 3 groups to be a part of or a request to join.
Mm-hmm. And the stakes are low.
Right.
I mean, find groups that you would join anyway.
Absolutely. There's a Forbes article I dropped in the chat here if you're listening. So let's kind of shift back to that, right? So we know your career goals, professional affiliations. Chris and I have talked about that, but let's take a sidestep, okay? We're not saying that LinkedIn should be Facebook, but we're saying it's okay to show professional regional interests or local affiliations, your local library. Follow that. Be a member of the Friends of the Public Library, right? Regional interests, the I Love Cleveland group or the Northeast Ohio or Outstanding Ohio. Shout out to Erin Johnson. She has made she has this incredible community that has exploded and it's called Outstanding Ohio. It's a group I follow on social media. And it's worth just check out your regional interests, be part of that group, find out what's going on in that area. So those are 2 of my personal, and we're going to get to my other 2 favorites later, but Those are the big ones for me. What about you? What are some regional or local things that you say people should kind of follow or join in the community?
Well, your chamber of commerce, if you are a small business, if you work for a small business, be involved with your local chamber. The people that you do business with in your community. If there is a chain of restaurants that is local for your community, hey, do they have a presence? Have they provided lunch, or has your organization used them to host their lunch? Or, when you have this big project coming up, wow, it's going to require, if you're in New England, maybe it's going to require a lot of dunks.
But okay, so let's talk about chambers for a second. So one of the cool things to talk about when you talk about a chamber, and I'm going to share my screen again for a second, but there are also regional chamber organizations that can help connect you to the right chamber. I will give a shout out to Cindy Holtzheimer of the Northern Ohio Area Chambers of Commerce. She's kind of an umbrella organization that helps chambers elevate plural. So if you're like, oh, I'm on the border between these two towns, is there a chamber in my area because you can't find them on social media? Look it up. Reach out to Cindy. She can help you. There's also national affiliations for the chambers, and they are designed to help businesses and connect people. And one of the really interesting tools that you can do is connect with chamber members. You ready? By doing this. So hold on. Let me close this, share my screen. Okay. So we are going to pull something up real quick, and I'm going to pull up chambers. So if you come over here, I went to that and that ...
Hang on, right. Just a side note. Mm-hmm. I'm also a member of the chamber in your area. Why? Through a connection on LinkedIn. It's like, that does sound really interesting.
Now I'm curious, what chamber are you part of?
Is it the chamber? The B2B?
B2B Connect, which promotes chambers too. Yes.
There you go. Yeah. So B2B Connect. So absolutely. The B2B Connect in the Cleveland area. Yes, I'm a member. I'm in the Metro Detroit area.
But so here's the cool thing. I introduced Chris to that community because I knew that community was also affiliated with lots of different chambers. And B2B is a organization committed just to business, right? If you want to be a member, drop Chris or I some your contact information. We'll be sure to reach out and talk about it. But we also believe in the power of chambers. So many of our members in B2B Connect are also actively involved in their chambers, which is so cool. We have members of the Swedish American Chamber. We have, which I love, right? We have some international chamber members. We have Copley. So my point being, when you go to look up these chambers, yes, there's lots of different chambers here. But if I'm like, oh, I'm not in Norfolk. Well, check out all filters. Well, there's no filters available right now, but I could do and go, well, let me see if they're not here. Let me go back to here, and I'm going to try hashtag chambers. Click here. Well, look at that. I can follow chambers. I can look at all the different chambers in my area, and wait a minute. There's all kinds of different chambers here. But what if I did this? I went chamber strong. I'm like, oh, that's an interesting hashtag. Kind of consider this like Google. Well, look at that. There's some information on some of the local chambers, right? You can also just Google Cleveland chambers. This is like autofill Google. All right. You can do companies. Let's go back. You can do, and I'm doing this off okay, there you go. Look at that. You can do groups. Cleveland Business Chamber. Well, look at that. Right? So there's lots of different ways, but you can follow your chamber. So here's another one. Copley Chamber of Commerce. It's near me. I'm following it, but when you click on this, check this out. You can also connect to all the employees at the chamber. Message and connect. Add them to your network. Another one that's by me is the Middleburg Heights Chamber. That's That's literally 5 minutes down the road for me. I love it because we're halfway with is a really good restaurant. So I could connect here. I could also go, well, let's look at their posts. What have they been doing? Oh, well, look at this. What great connections. I should see who all's there and see if I can connect. Oh my gosh, got a lot of stuff going on.
There you go. And as an introvert, if you know these individuals in person, then it is easier to join the community online.
Mm-hmm.
A friend, Gina King, this is how you get involved. Raise your hand. You do.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how you do it. And I just saw Heidi just said she'd love to get involved. Heidi, I'll absolutely check in with you. So I'm writing this down. That's another way. Yeah, Butch also chimed in too. He's a member of the Youngstown Warren Regional Chamber. Love it. Right?
Yeah. And another organization.
That's a good one. Go for it.
Happy Neighborhood Homes or Happy Neighborhood Project. So I met a couple of people. The interesting thing is we met in online communities, not happy neighborhood homes. But when I showed up to a happy neighborhood project for Michigan, wait a second, I know half the room. Okay, I think I'm in the right place. Being, even though being an introvert, I was reluctant initially to reach out to another group. Seeing people I was familiar with, it's like, oh, I'm in the right place. This is a group I can easily belong to and make a connection and make a contribution and deepen that community time.
I love that. Yeah. And so here's a fun thing. So the Happy Neighborhood Project is called HNP. Let's share my screen again. Y'all can follow along and do this with us if you want. So hold on one second. Let me go to this. Okay. So follow along with Chris and I. He's exactly right. So he knew that you'll find that it's like that. So we talk about this in volunteer. It's the same people doing the same things in just different organizations. So be that person, be in that network, right? Because like-minded people join together and you want to be at the table with those leaders and movers and shakers. So if you click on the Happy Neighborhood Project, okay, so I'm following, click on here and go, oh, well, who's here? Oh my gosh, there's 90 employees I could connect to. What? Right? What about people? Well, who are the people? Well, let's look at that. 61 of them live in the United States. Most of them studied at the University of Phoenix, right? Well, there you go. These are people that you may already know. So you're already one step ahead, and your personalized invitation could say, hey, Sandy, I noticed that we're both following the HNP. I'd love to connect and learn more about what you do. Or my favorite hack is just say, I'd love to connect and engage on LinkedIn. Let's join networks, right? Same here. She's in total health or wellness, right? So as you go through these, you're like, oh, she's already a second-degree connection. We already share 35 connections. The world, all of a sudden, to Chris's point, got smaller, right? So again, going back to your regional interests, your local, your networking groups, your chambers, right? These are ways to just use the power of people, right? So search for an organization or company, look at their employees, or just click people. I mean, people make the world go round, y'all. And then go to the bottom and see who's a second-degree connection and start connecting. Send a personal invite. Please do not just blast these people because they will not accept your invite. So
they should not. And see, that's a wonderful thing. Mm-hmm. Now, something that we always, or a regular feature of all of our conversations, whether they are on a live or just on a call or wherever they happen to be. Mm-hmm. So what are you reading?
Ooh. All right. So let's focus my interests on networking groups, right? So the power of networking in a virtual world, right? So this is where Chris and I always love books. Some of my favorite books are, get ready for it. They're not ones you might think of because most people haven't heard of them, but I love the book called The Art of Mingling, and it's by Jean Martinet. Love it, love it, love it. It is an easy read. It's quick and easy. I'll grab it. I actually recommend this one and another one. You can get it on Amazon. These are two of my, when I have an introvert, I'm training. Okay. Yes, you could give them Susan Cain's Quiet, The Power of Introverts, and all of that. Well, and pause for 1 second. There's a question in the thing. How many can you be a member of multiple chambers, or are you? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Or that thing. Thank you. Remember. Yes, thank you. Collaborative. Plexus is the one for the LGBT group. Shout out to you, Heidi. Thank you for reminding me, because I'm like, I couldn't remember it. But okay, sorry. Back to books. Divert. Okay, so my two favorites is this one, Business Etiquette, 101 Ways to Conduct Business with Charm and Savvy. It's a fun book by Anne Marie Sabbath. I'll drop it in the chat in a second. And the chapter titles are so fun. Like, one is Making Initial Encounters Work, Your Opening Moves. Another one, and they're just simple tips, sound advice, making the right phone impression. Like, they're just little tips. Like, and the tips are super short, but it's a really cool thing. And I usually read it once every other couple of years just to refresh myself on just some of the outside the box stuff that we forget when we get into that routine. So Business Etiquette, Charm and Savvy, one of my favorite books when it comes to networking, especially for introverts. This is The Art of Mingling. This is the revised copy, but as you can tell, I've used it a few times because I've got notes and highlights and Post-its. Especially, it's cool. And like I said, it's by Jean Martinet. And have you ever been, it's kind of like the dating guide for networking. Because if you've ever been to a course on how to connect with people, here are opening lines that work. Here are techniques that make you not look uncomfortable, right? And a shout out, I was on a podcast. I did two different podcasts. One with Yolanda Albergati and 5 Easy Things. And if Yolanda, you're still listening, can you please help me remember the number episode that we did where we talked about the spark, how to spark conversation. And this book is where I got some of, where I found some just fun ways to start conversation. And the other podcast I was on, or it was a power session with Together Digital, we talked about small talk is dead. Small talk is died, y'all. Move on from small talk. It's dead. All right. So those are my two favorite, and it's a personal passion project of mine to get people to have real conversations. So
Okay.
Thank you, Chris, for dropping those in the chat. So
You're quite welcome. And I will add one in a completely different direction.
Okay.
I love music.
Ooh.
And so a book came out last year by Amir Thompson, Questlove, and it is a look at 50 years of music. And it is really music and history. They're not in isolation. People write songs, people perform with what is going on around them and in the world as part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really good book. It is like the liner notes for my music collection, because I have a lot of music that crosses a lot of genres.
Yeah.
And it is really interesting to hear what history was going on and how that influenced, or how songwriters were influenced by that and wrote what they did. So yes, Watergate, yes, that was something that was going on in the 70s.
Huh.
Music was not happening in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
People wrote in response to that.
That's really cool. So take these. So all of our books are in the chat, and I want to shift gears for a second, right? So we're talking about community, right? We're talking about community over coffee. But music is a community in itself. Look up music groups on LinkedIn. I'm not saying be a fangirl, okay, and follow a music genre. But if you have a favorite, if you're like, oh, you know what, I really like this type of music, do a post about it. Do a post about music just every blue moon, right? Get people to see in your network who also shares that common interest. I love this line of We became friends because of looks. We stayed friends because of common interests, right? We became friends because of looks. We stayed friends because of common interests. Use that same line. We, in thinking of LinkedIn, we became connected because we shared a common connection, but we stayed connected because we shared a common interest.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you connect because you share a common person, but you grow your connection or grow your community because you share common interests. So do a post about that. Yesterday, I did a post on Trails for Travis, just giving a shout out to my network and going, hey, you know what? We share our time and talent with nonprofits. So to Chris's point, he also does TEDx. Bomb job is, I mean, so he might do a post on that. So don't be afraid to post of, hey, who in my network is a huge music lover? Comment below with one of your favorite artists.
Exactly. And, it's another music book. I recently finished this, is called Dilla Time. It is a biography about Jay Dilla from Detroit.
Okay.
And there are a lot of Detroit references. Music in Detroit does not start or end with Motown. And the impact of Dilla, his, let's see, his equipment is in the Smithsonian. So that, I
No
mean,
way.
he's made a impact, not just in Detroit, not just
Huh.
regionally, but he changed how people understand what music and sampling and other things are capable of doing. So one
That
of the
is
things
so
with that,
cool.
he talks about there was straight time and there was swing time. And now there's something called Dilla time because it doesn't fit either one of those.
That is so cool. I'm making a note of that. So this is what happens with Chris and I. We leave with like 16 different post-it notes of what I need to read. But no, I think I love that point, right? And so we're looking at, there's been some controversy too when you talk about music. G did a post. So if you don't follow G, I'll type her in the chat. Her name is Gayhan. She's wonderful. She did a fabulous post on being true to your brand, right? She linked what was happening in the music world with Dolly Parton and declining the invite to be nominated for the Rock Hall. Let me see if I can find her post. Jahan, follow her and comment on her post about Dolly. Yeah, the famous Dolly, right? So she did this post talking about being true to your brand. She got great feedback from the audience of, because if you don't know the story, what happened in the news about a week and a half ago, Dolly Parton responded publicly to her nomination for the Rock Hall saying, thank you so much, but I'm going to bow out. I'm not a Rock Hall person. I don't do rock and roll. I do country. Now, you've inspired me to do, and I'm paraphrasing, you've inspired me to possibly produce a rock album. My husband loves rock. Maybe I'll be honored to be nominated again, but I'm bowing out now because that's not my brand, right? So taking to Chris's point, what's happening in the music world, right? Pivoting that conversation as a post, getting the conversation going in your community can also spark other people. And I love it. Heidi tagged Bob Seger, right? Same idea. Like take those what's happening and pivot that conversation to see where you share a community link. Where's there a common interest, right? Because to Chris's point, I would be fascinated. Fun fact about history. Did you know Dilla's equipment is in the Smithsonian? You could tag the Smithsonian. You could tag some other music lovers. You could do hashtag, music history. You could tag the Music Hall of Fame, whatever. You could tag was it a biography or not?
It is a biography. He died in 2006.
Okay, I was going to ask. So
Yeah.
it's things you can do. Tag the Rock Hall, right? Because the Rock Hall apparently is spanning all gamuts right now of who we're nominating. But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation for another LinkedIn Live. And that's where we invite my friend Emily on, who has her shirt. She's a member of the Rock Hall's museum, or she's a member of the Rock Hall. She's also It's terms of like you're a member of the art museum, you donate. But she also has multiple certifications from Coursera and Udemy on like the history of rock and roll.
Mhm.
Like it's fabulous, if that helps. So
It is. Well, as usual, our conversation has spanned a wide range of topics,
it
and
has.
it's always fun.
It's
So
always an honor to be in a conversation with you. So
thank you so much for
thank you.
joining me, and I look forward to more conversations in the future.
I do too. And could we leave our audience with one quick thing?
Absolutely.
I challenge you as an audience who's been listening either live or after the fact. I want you to join 3 groups on LinkedIn. So request to join 3 groups. I want you to think of 2 professional organizations that or chambers in your area or networking groups to join. And then 1, I want you to comment on one person's post today, 5 words or more. So 3, 2, 1, right? 3 groups, 2 cham. So we look at 3 groups, 2 different ways to get involved, and then 1 post. Okay. So that should be your 3, 2, 1 for the day. That's what I'm challenging you after listening to us of all the tips we shared. I hope you've liked listening to Chris and I just swap stories. So thank you, Chris, for always being calm and clear and having great communication.
And thank you, Megan.
Cheers,
Interested
everybody.
in learning more about any of the items that you've seen in today's session? Leave a comment below. Interested in being a guest? Leave a comment below. I help event planners and organizers produce virtual events. Learn how I can support your virtual event by connecting or leaving a comment. Thanks for watching.